I'm Sean Allen. Welcome back to Talk Local here on Rogers TV, brought to you in partnership with Brant News. Tonight's show is all about planning for those later stages of life with estate and retirement planning. We have a couple of experts in those fields tonight. Ted Pease, a lawyer who deals with estate planning, and Brent McKay, who's a certified financial planner and is here to talk about retirement planning. But Ted, I wanted to start off talking to you here about because I have this question myself, is when do you have to do a will? When's a good time to do a will? Is there too soon?
My recommendation is that anybody over 18 should have powers of attorney, because parents think they have automatic power for their children if they become disabled and are unable to act for themselves, and that's not the case. So I've got 4 kids in their 20s. None of them have any money, so they don't have a will, but they all have powers of attorney. Usually young adults, as they get married and they buy their first piece of real estate, their house, then that would be a good time, because now they've got some equity, they might have some insurance. That's the first time I usually get to see people. A lot of people come in when they're about to go on an airplane, and I say, you're driving on the 401, you don't think that's dangerous? Some people are, it's unbelievable how many people come in just before a trip and then you've got to rush the will. Obviously there's another time to look at it when you're maybe going to come into inheritance, that type of a thing. Or when you get married. If you get married, that voids your old will, so you have to come in and get a new will. That's another time. But there's every 5 years there's enough changes in the law that people should go in and have their wills updated or talk about it. The problem in Canada is that 50% of people don't have wills.
50% don't have wills.
50% don't.
And maybe I just want to go back for a second and quickly define the difference between a power of attorney and a will.
Okay. A will speaks from death. So how do you want your assets distributed to your family when you pass away? And you appoint executors to run the estate, and they give the assets to your children or whoever you want to make your beneficiaries. Powers of attorney deal with incapacity, so you're still alive, but you're in a coma, you've been in an accident, and you can't sign checks, or you can't make health care decisions for yourself. So you need power of attorney for finance, called power of attorney for property, and a power of attorney for personal care for health care decisions.
And after 18, it's a good idea to have that power of attorney?
For sure, because what
it's
happens—
not automatic, parents?
It's not automatic, and what happens is if the child is in an accident, then the government steps in, the public guardian trustee, to make decisions for them financially and personal care, and you have to apply to the government. It takes like 6 months to take over. So you sign a simple power of attorney, takes 5 minutes, doesn't cost much.
And then the transition to a will is in that life stage where you get a house, you get married.
You start to get some assets, that's right.
Start to get some assets.
That's correct.
I wanted to come back to something you said, Ted, about having a will updated every 5 years. How important is it to do that?
When I have my clients in and they sign their will, they don't necessarily have to update their will every 5 years. What I recommend is that they come in for a free consultation every 5 years, just to go over it, just to make sure there's nobody's passed away in the family, or there's any circumstances changed, like their money situation may have changed. There may be an illness that may be becoming more immediate. The worst thing is people say, oh, they have a will and it's from 1976 or 1985 or whatever, right? And the kids are all older now, they don't need the trust. There's all sorts of planning we can do as the kids get older, and there's grandkids and great-grandchildren. We can set up trusts for all of them and sprinkle the income and save a lot of taxes. Like, there's a lot of things you can do. So I like to see them every 5 years. They don't necessarily have to, unless there's a change, they don't have to update.
Is there, and you said sometimes rules change as well. Is there pitfalls that you can fall into if you're not coming in and staying updated on them?
For sure. I mean, it was in the mid-90s that they brought in the powers of attorney. So there's still people out there without personal care powers of attorney. In the mid-90s that lawyers started putting clauses in the will dealing with Family Law Act, leaving money to their kids, and then it goes to their spouse. So there's ways to protect against that. And a lot of the old wills, as soon as an old will comes in, I just look at it to make sure that that clause is there. Because if it's not, then we need to update it.
And is that the only time you need to update it, then, is changes to either the rules or how your life is going?
That's generally what the reason is. And also the lawyer changes. As I become more and more experienced, there's more and more scenarios that I can come forward with the clients. It evolves over time, the complexity of my practice.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And power of attorney, again, you touched on. There's 3 different kinds.
No, the 2 different kinds. There's the financial one, so that if you were incapable, a financial power of attorney, your attorney can sign your checks, can do your banking, can sign your tax return. And the other one is called power of attorney for personal care, and that's for healthcare decisions, like what retirement home do you go to, or what kind of operation do you have, etc. The financial people pay the bills, the personal care decide where dad goes to live when he's old or whatever.
Okay. Maybe we could just sort of continue the point you were on there with you were talking about there's a financial side, there's a health side to it, and then an executor is a different thing. Who should these people be in your life when you're coming up with your will? I imagine it's different for everybody, but
it's definitely different for everybody. If you assume that there's you have a spouse and then there's 3 children, typically the executors are the people that you set out in your will that will administer your estate and work with a lawyer. It takes about a year or 2 to wrap the estate up and then transfer the assets over to the spouse or the children. So it's usually the spouse on the first to die, and then on the second to die, it's usually the 3 children, unless one of the children is out west and doesn't want anything to do with it. But typically, you appoint all of your kids, or if one's an accountant and the others aren't interested, each situation's a bit different, but often it's all of the children, the 2 or 3 kids. The financial power of attorney, if you became incapacitated, is usually the same as the executors in the will, because it's a financial job. It's just that you're ill, you haven't died yet, but if you die, then they just finish up the estate. They're already managing the money. The health care can be totally different people. Like the spouses can choose each other usually first, and then they can choose, if they don't have children, they might each choose a brother or a sister. If they've got children, they'd pick sometimes all 3 kids, and sometimes one of the children is a nurse. And they say, that's the one I want making those kind of decisions for me. So it's different in every situation.
Is that something you work with clients on, as far as trying to come up with who is going to be the best?
It's critical,
to
because, yeah, and if the kids don't get along, you don't appoint them all. There's no sense in putting a dysfunctional family down. Sorry. Some people know that in advance.
Fair enough.
Yeah.